In June of 2020, auditors went looking for 1.9 billion euros. It was supposed to be sitting in 2 bank accounts in the Philippines. The banks said they had never heard of it. The money wasn't lost. It wasn't stolen. It had simply never existed. And almost nobody had wanted to look. This is the story of Wirecard, a company that rose to become one of the 30 most valuable in Germany, worth more than Deutsche Bank. A company hailed as Europe's answer to Silicon Valley, and a company whose success, it turned out, was partly invented. But the real story isn't just the fraud. It's how many people whose job was to stop it chose instead to attack the ones raising the alarm. Wirecard processed digital payments. Every time money moved between a shopper, a store, and a bank, companies like Wirecard took a tiny cut. It was unglamorous plumbing for the internet economy, and it scaled beautifully. By the 2010s, Wirecard was growing faster than almost anyone in European tech. Its chief executive, Markus Braun, talked like a visionary, promising a cashless future and buying companies across Asia. Investors believed him. In September of 2018, Wirecard did something extraordinary. It joined the DAX, the index of Germany's 30 largest listed companies, knocking out Commerzbank, a bank founded in 1870. At its peak, Wirecard was valued at around 24 billion euros. A payments processor most people had never heard of was now a German national champion. And national champions are not easy to question. But some people were questioning it. For years, journalists at the Financial Times, led by a reporter named McCrum, kept finding the same problem. A huge share of Wirecard's profits came from something called third-party acquiring. In places where Wirecard didn't have its own licenses, it claimed to use outside partners to process payments and took a cut of those profits. On paper, this business was enormously profitable. In reality, much of it was almost impossible to verify. The partners were small, obscure firms in Asia and the Middle East. The profits they supposedly generated piled up as cash held in trusty accounts far away. Reporters and short sellers kept asking a simple question: is this money actually there? Wirecard's answer was to go on the attack. When the Financial Times published its concerns, the company called it market manipulation. And then something genuinely strange happened. Germany's financial regulator, BaFin, the body meant to police companies like Wirecard, filed a criminal complaint against the journalists. It also did something almost unheard of. It temporarily banned investors from betting against Wirecard's stock, protecting the company instead of investigating it. For a while, it worked. The story became foreign speculators attacking a German success. The fraud wasn't just hiding. It was being defended by the people meant to catch it. The problem with money that doesn't exist is that eventually, someone insists on counting it. Under mounting pressure, Wirecard agreed to a special audit by KPMG. KPMG's report in 2020 said it could not verify the bulk of those overseas profits. It couldn't confirm the partners. It couldn't confirm the cash. Still, the company insisted everything was real. Then came the final count. Wirecard's longtime auditor, Ernst Young, needed proof of 1.9 billion euros supposedly sitting in trustee accounts at 2 banks in the Philippines. The banks were asked directly. Both said the accounts did not exist. The Central Bank of the Philippines said the money had never entered the country's financial system at all. On June 18, 2020, Ernst Young refused to sign off on the accounts. Within days, Wirecard admitted the 1.9 billion probably never existed. The stock fell more than 90%. A company worth 24 billion euros at its peak filed for insolvency on June 25, 2020, the first member of the DAX ever to do so. Markus Braun was arrested. He has denied wrongdoing, saying he too was deceived. But the man at the center of the missing money, the chief operating officer, Jan Marsalek, had already vanished. He fled as the company collapsed and became one of Europe's most wanted fugitives, later linked by investigators to Russian intelligence. The money was gone because it had never been there, and the man who could explain it was gone too. It's tempting to ask how nobody noticed, but people did notice. That's the point. Journalists noticed. Short sellers noticed. The signals were public for years. What failed wasn't information. It was incentive. The auditors trusted documents instead of independently confirming the cash for a decade. The regulator treated criticism of a national champion as an attack to be repelled rather than a warning to be tested. Investors wanted the story to be true because a European tech giant is a wonderful thing to believe in. That's the quiet engine behind a lot of large frauds. Not a brilliant lie that fools everyone, but a comfortable story that too many people had a reason not to question. The most dangerous moment for any institution is when doubting the story starts to feel disloyal. Wirecard didn't collapse because the truth was hidden. It collapsed because, for years, almost no one wanted to find it. Marcus Braun has stood trial in Munich, still denying he knew. Jan Marsalek remains missing. And the 1.9 billion euros was never found because there was never anything to find. If you want more stories of how money and trust come apart, this channel has plenty. We'll see you in the next one.